Hello, oodles and fanoodles. We are back. Sorry, the hair's a little crazy this morning. I realize as I get older that my hair is turning more into a puffball. And quite frankly, I feel like I should care about it more, and I do, but at the same time, I'm just letting it go. I'm going with the flow, people. Learning how to go with the flow. And today, I'm going to talk about the newest addition to my read books collection, although technically, I read this book and the whole entire series many a times ago when I was a wee whippersnapper. And I'm talking about Dragonwing, people. Dragonwing. A book series written by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman, the same famoso people who wrote the Dragonlance novels. And Dragonwing is quite old. It is very much an OG in the fantasy realm, and it was interesting to read after so long. I had little bits and pieces of memories left over from when I had read it when I was younger, and any book or series that stays in my mind for so long, especially when I recall reading it only once before, that kind of tells me that there was something there. There was some nuggets that really pulled me. But of course, everybody knows as you get older, nostalgia can play a few tricks on you. Things that seemed so amazing when you were younger, they just don't have that same impact anymore when you're older, because you're at a different stage in your reading level, effectively. Same thing happens with games. There's loads of games that I've played when I was younger, and I really loved them. They hit me hard. And then many years later, does nostalgia hit? I tried the game, and it was just nothing. I really disliked it because just I was comparing it to other games that I had played since then, and where I was at in my mind, it just didn't impress me in the same way. Dragonwing falls somewhere in between, because there is that part of my mind that still knows that this is a 7-book series, and I'm pretty sure that it gets better as it goes along. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. It is a very long series, and a lot of, I think, what makes this book and what will probably make this series itself interesting is the world building. They did something a little bit special with this, because it is a typical OG high fantasy series. You have your dwarves, you have your elves, you have your humans, you have the typical conflicts happening between humans and elves, which there always are. But what's meshed into this is how interesting the world is. And so we're coming into a world that's basically been sundered, historically speaking. We don't understand fully why, but the world was separated into different realms. And in some instances, those realms can be easily gotten to effectively just by ship, and other times there's more complexity that's required to get into the different realms. But they used to all be one, and then they got separated out. So in this first novel, we are dealing with where humans, dwarves, and elves live, which effectively is made out to be on sort of, you have the lower realm, the lower land, where the dwarves are living, and then in effectively floating pieces of land up in the sky, you have the mid-realm, and then a little bit higher, sort of the other part of the mid-realm where the elves live. So you have your humans living in the mid-realm, elves living a little bit more in the mid-realm, dwarves down below, and then we also have what's considered the high realm, where the human mysteriarchs went to live, who are effectively the most powerful human sorcerers that there are in this world. And so you have these different aspects being shown, and it's very curious. I don't want to get into it too much, obviously, because that will lead to too many spoilers, but where the dwarves live in this world, they're called Gegs, but they're sort of interchangeable. People knew them as dwarves, but now they call themselves the Gegs. These Gegs serve this machine known as the Kixie-Winzy, and it is unique and strange and was obviously built for some purpose. And the whole interlocking backstory, we'll say, to all this is that there used to be these people known as the Sartan. And the Sartan were gods. Some people call them the Mangers, but they were gods. And they were effectively supposed to have brought all these people here to these realms, these places. And they're the ones who made the Kixie and they're the ones who set up everything. But nobody really understands why, because they disappeared a long time ago, and you don't really get to know precisely what happened until some part through the book. But even when you start getting more information about it, you don't really understand what exactly did these Sartan do? Why did they separate everything out like this? What happened to them? What led to effectively them being separated from all of these people who used to look up to them? And then we also have the patrons, who are supposedly the arch enemy of the Sartan. And there was quite a lot that happened to the patrons as well, and they were almost the same level, god level, as these Sartan in terms of the level of magic that these two people could use was so high and so advanced compared to others that they were effectively like gods to the, I don't want to call them the lesser races, because that's not really how they're portrayed in this book, but to the less powerful folk. And this conflict between the Sartan and Patron is sort of, you can tell, a major backdrop to what's going to be happening in the further books. But in this one, even though you're introduced to characters from both of those groups, you're effectively just following one of the Gegs, two humans. Actually, it's just that there's not really elves per se who are on anyone's side in this. And the elves are sort of put much more in the enemy category in this book, and you're really just following along with some political bullshit that's happening between the humans, and also the conflict happening down below between the Gegs themselves, and all that's interlocking and interchanging between the two groups. And the elves are sort of just this fixed point where they're mostly just the baddies in this book. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of characters. You have quite a few main characters. We have two, Haplo and Alfred. We also have Bane, we have Hugh. Hugh is sort of our main central point of view throughout the entire series, and he is an assassin who has been taken on to do a job that I won't get too much into, but that job is actually very interesting, seeing his inner turmoil and conflict as he's trying to figure things out, and you're getting flashbacks to his own life. He was actually a very, very interesting character. I did not like where this story took him. How it ended with him, I didn't like it much at all. It was really interesting at first, and I felt like he would have been a character that would have been really interesting to develop and grow with, but we didn't really get much of that at the end of it, unfortunately. The other characters that are on the side are mostly kind of dull. I don't really find the other humans to be interesting in the story. The two other central main characters, who at least in this first book, you're just seeing parts of them. You know who they are, you know what's going on, you are seeing their point of view, but nothing really happens with them. They're sort of like these weird side characters who you know are actually extremely important, and they're going to be even more important as the book series go on. But in this first book, you're really not getting it. I don't think they did a very good job of making us care a lot about the characters in this first book. And that's unfortunate because this book is basically foreshadowing. The whole book is a setup for the other books, which, I mean, every first book is a setup for other books, but this one really is not having a huge amount happening, even though so much does happen on the grand scheme of like the big story that you know this is leading up to. None of this really mattered what they did. It was sort of a lot of, I don't want to say it was wasted time, because you do get character development to a certain degree, especially of one of the sort of side characters who's actually a main character, Alfred. But again, it's difficult to judge. This book left me feeling weird because I liked it. I liked the world building. I enjoyed everything that was going on the whole time. It was an easy read. The flow was really well. When there was some action scenes that were quite well done, especially considering this is an older novel. Older books have a tendency to not really have that great of an action scene sequencing going on in them, but this did it pretty well. I did not, though, feel strongly for so many people. I mean, the Geg who we follow along with, Limbeck, who is quite important, I could not really... There was a moment when you first get introduced to him that's very nice. It's very interesting. He seems to be a very interesting character, and you feel like he's going to develop into something more. Then he ends up becoming just this kind of... you don't really care. He's just weird after. He's a little bit strange. He doesn't seem to always be there. He's just stuck in his head, which is sort of how his character is portrayed, but it makes him sort of redundant to the storyline. Yeah. It's hard. It's rough for me to give... I don't want to give this book a bad rating because it's actually enjoyable. I finished it off quite easily. I think it took me 2 to 3 days to finish off completely. I don't know. I don't know. I want to give you guys more info, but it's very hard because there's so much lore, and that's what's really driving the story forward. If I'm going to give it some positive, like, kudos, is that the foreshadowing done in this is very much based off of lore, and it's trying to build up the world. So you're finding out about so many different pieces happening in so many different places, while getting tidbits and hints about what had happened before with the Sartan, with the patrons, what was going on, and then what's possibly going to happen in the future. And so there's this huge amount of stuff, very, very important stuff that you're going to be finding out. But yet what's happening in the moment just seems pretty inconsequential in comparison, that it fudges it a little bit. But again, overall, I really enjoyed this book. It was fun to read. The characters overall are pretty fun. They don't really emotionally draw you in, like I said, except for Hugh and possibly Alfred. But again, because of how Hugh's character is taken near the end, and because Alfred is sort of taking a sidestep and like hiding in the background in this first book, it kind of stunts it a little bit. But I would definitely check it out. I would definitely check it. If you wanna, if you're someone who loves high fantasy, who likes elves and dwarves, and you want something different, if you're tired of the same old, this book really builds a world that's quirky and strange and interesting, and a very, very complex magic system, actually. Even though it doesn't really get into the nitty-gritty of it within the novel itself. Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman took a lot of time to develop the magic system, and there's some really interesting footnotes, effectively, at the end of the novel, which describes all the magic system, and it's very complicated. It kind of reminds me of Tolkien with his languages. So I would definitely check it out. If you're someone who nerds out on just kind of magic and, I want to say engineering, even though it's not effectively engineering, but just science and doing weird things in the world and machines and just strange stuff going on, this is going to be the novel for you. It's not the best, but it's fun and worth a read. Let me know what you think down below. Like, comment, subscribe if you feel like. If you don't, that's cool. That's all right. I still love you. I mean, I don't know you, so I don't love you. It's always been weird to me when people are like, I love my audience so much. It's like, how do you love people you've never met and never talked to? I don't really know. I appreciate everyone who subscribes to me. I truly do. It's really fun that people take the time to subscribe and follow my videos. I know I'm really erratic with my stuff, and I know I don't do crazy video editing like a lot of other people do these days to stand out. I just like talking about the things I've read and rambling, and it's fun, and I wish I could do more of it. I'm just distracted by so many things these days. But I consistently keep saying that I'm going to keep trying to do more, and I'm going to keep trying. Eventually it'll click. It was like flossing. I never used to floss, and then one day I just started putting my mind to it, and it just clicked, and now I floss every day, and I swear to God it's going to happen one of these days with my videos. So thanks again, and have yourselves a wonderful day. Peace.